Claude Beyond Mystic, and welcome to today's War Correspondent special report on financial warfare and white hat psychological operations. With me today, soon, hopefully, will be Mr. Jim Willie from golden-jackass.com. We're just waiting on him to connect the stream here. He's having a little bit of technical issues. But with me, of course, now on the screen is the author of The Rebel Gene, Secret Space and the Future of Humanity. And you can find her work, Kerry Cassidy, of course, at projectcamelotportal.com. Kerry, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm so excited to have this part two with you. Hopefully, Jim can connect and we can pick up where we left off about a month ago. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in the live chat now here on Rumble. We're about 2,300 watching live. So thank you so much for being here. And please remember to follow us if you want to see more of this very cool and uncensored information. The show almost didn't happen, guys. I don't know if you were following my Twitter earlier this afternoon, but we have a tornado warning here in Ottawa. And it just landed about 30 minutes west of us, but so far is tracking southeast. So we should be okay for the rest of the show. I didn't want to have to cancel this one a third time. So I'm so excited to be here. Kerry, thank you so much for being here as well. Kerry, before we start, I'm going to bring up the poster from the last show where we had some of the subject titles for the audience members. Guys, you can follow us there at beyondmystic.net/war, and you'll find the items for discussion there here today. We're going to start at the subversion part here in a little second. But before we get into that, Kerry, I wanted to ask you, since we last spoke about a month or almost 2 months ago now, what are the things you're tracking right now in this war effort for humanity? Is there newcomers coming up? Are there things moving off your radar? New things coming up on your radar? What are you most concerned about right now? And what do you think the audience members should be concentrating on right now, as opposed to listening to the clown show in Washington, D.C.? Kerry.
Well, as you call it, the clown show. I know they're interviewing the FBI right now. And in a certain sense, that is the tip of the iceberg, as you can appreciate it. So it's kind of interesting to me that we are so much in the world today, having all these simultaneous things happen. And I was just laughing with a friend about the whole. Well, it was the hottest day in the year on July 4th. And so nobody wanted to go to Disneyland in Florida. Oh my God, it was 80 degrees.
Mhm.
It was like such a lie. And, because they don't want to talk about the blowback from the whole pedo thing,
Right.
which has gotten a lot of notice because of the Sound of Freedom movie. And I can talk quite a bit about that movie. I've done a great deal of investigation, I would say, and I can tell you some behind the scenes data about that, which I think is crucial, actually. So I don't know if you want me to launch into stuff or what you want me
Sure.
to do here. I can continue like an overview type thing before we get
Yeah, let's do that.
drilled down.
Let's just give us the 40,000 foot overview. I do want to get into the
Okay.
Sound of Freedom too, because it does touch in.
Yes.
I did say Sarah and I did see the movie finally on Sunday. We were able to get tickets because it was sold out here. There's only two
Oh,
playings
wow.
last week, and finally they added some showings to it. So even though it's not advertised by the big machine, they're doing really well, and they actually beat the Dial of Destiny, Indiana Jones, on opening day there on July 4th. So good on this movie. Okay, so Kerry, 40,000 foot view right now. What's happening in the world?
Okay.
What do we care about?
So my understanding is, this is what I'm hearing, is that we have these certain committees, because when basically the Republicans won the House, that won them the ability to run the committees and to decide who gets to go in a committee and be involved. And that's kind of where the laws and the legislation starts to get generated. And then they're also doing hearings behind the scenes, even from what I understand, that one might even call tribunals, but maybe they have a different name because the Congress is involved, or at least the committee is involved. So I don't know how that works. I don't know whether the courtroom exists in where they're supposed to be in Washington, D.C., or if it's somewhere else, like Guantanamo or Guam, as the new Guantanamo is in Guam, in case you don't know that.
Right.
And that's a whole interesting story. And and then we have just a lot of rumblings, of course, of nuclear some nuclear incident coming along. Turkey having about-faced just a couple days ago, and instead of turning their backs on NATO and the whole game, is now embracing NATO and turning, in a sense, slapping Putin across the face, if you want to call it that, and just doing a complete about face. Well, why? One in, I think it was either March or April, whenever the earthquake weapon hit them, as you remember.
Yeah.
That is a deep state tool by which to put countries that are not, following in the right footsteps in order. So Turkey was hit by that in March, and then come here, I think in the last month of negotiation, whatever it happened to be, they just got a whole bunch of, I think they're called F-16s, but don't quote me because I'm not a military equipment person. This is a plane, a set of planes, or F-35s or whatever it is, but the U.S. bought them off, okay? Brought them back on side. All right. So this is an interesting dynamic, and one that people in the world need to pay more attention to, in my opinion, because, I'm very familiar with the pattern with Egypt. So basically the United States has been trying to run the world for a very long time. And you could even see the New World Order as the side that's trying to go up against the US, basically taking control. And so the two sides are now really out and out war. And all of these other countries, like it or not, are in what we call a proxy war. They're the sideline. They are where actual war takes place on the ground in their countries, because, of course, we don't want to get it messy in here in the United States, right, on the ground, if we can avoid it. However, the deep state has also changed that up and been attacking us, but they've been attacking us with very bizarre frequency weapons, fires, train derailments, you name it, poisoning our air, our water, doing everything they can to make life miserable for Americans, and doing a fair good job on that. Not even getting attacked for it. I mean, in the mainstream, or not even the white hats are talking about that side of things.
Right.
Okay, which I just started raising the alarm right away when that started happening. Really, it's been about a year or two, but it's definitely been a year. The past year has been jam-packed with incidents across our country and ongoing even now. And the recent strange fires coming down from Canada. You may know more about that even than I do, where there's no fire in Canada, but supposedly the smoke is coming into the United States and ruining the air quality in the Northeast. So, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put this stuff together. And it's just amazing that no one does. So the mainstream and the mainstream news are like famously what you call tunnel vision. They lack the ability to put two and two together. And with all the incidents happening, you would think, wait, we're under attack. Hello, it's kind of obvious. Now, who's doing it? Let's talk about that.
Right.
But no, that doesn't happen, because those are acts of war. I mean, these are acts of war on our people. Okay. And so there's that. And then, of course, the whole Biden show, which has been a complete laughingstock. But of course, this is the Illuminati, doing their puppet show, so to speak, and proud of it. Okay. And they don't care how stupid he looks and acts and whatever. I was just having a fantasy the other day. What if one of the Biden clones, or doubles, whatever you want to call those people. There were clones, by the way, but I think they're now just actor doubles.
Yeah.
What if one of them just went public and ripped his mask off and said, "Hey, I'm not Biden. Don't blame me."
Right.
I mean, maybe
I'm just a paid actor, folks. Right.
Yeah.
It's
not impossible. So I know I sound a little hyper here, but my life has also been so insane lately, with things going on that could be explained away, but don't seem like you should, because the evidence is mounting that they're doing crazy shit to me right now. And that may be because I've announced that I wanted to start this UFO complex center where we would rescue. A lot of whistleblowers are passing on and have passed on in the past, in case you don't know, in the past 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And so they had grown older. Now, whether they passed
Jim
on
Mars,
naturally
Robert
is a
Dean,
whole
like
nother.
all these guys. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Pete
Yeah.
Peterson. I mean,
Yeah.
it's massive. John Lear. I mean, some of the greats of the greats. Okay,
Mhm,
Bob
mhm.
Dean. So what I'm saying here is that we need a place to preserve our UFO history before they start. Okay, what's happening now with these new disclosures is they're trying to wipe away the past. They want to get out from under the fact that they have been lying to people for 80 years, 80 plus years. It's incredible. And killing whistleblowers at the same time.
Right.
So this is documented. We have the documents, we have the evidence, and we have the whistleblower testimony. So Camelot is in essence started in like 2005, taking the testimony of those whistleblowers from, that were around then, but there were ones even before that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is actually, I've tried to raise money through investors, and I'm putting this together. If you want to click on the article, it's actually there. You can see it's based on a UFO shaped Alexandria library. That was my sort of inspiration for the complex. But this could be huge if you can think about it, because it's going to have like a movie theater. It would have restaurants. It would be a place where speakers would come, do their presentations. So it's really quite amazing. Do you see it where there's the water and you see kind of part of a UFO there? It's like
this one here.
3. Yeah. No, you should see. Yeah, that's it. So that's where the article is. Take a look at it. If you're interested, let me know. Just putting this very preliminary together right now. But
I'll bring the link down in the live chat for the audience.
Because Captain Mark Richards right now is going through a divorce. The divorce has happened with his former wife, Joanne Richards, and apparently is about to lose his house where all his work over the many, many years has been stored in these file cabinets. And I've seen it. They're huge and there's tons, because he was doing work and research and writings on everything he experienced in the secret space program going back to the 60s. And back in those days, they didn't have the internet, except maybe underground. And so his material, a lot of it is like papers, right? And so we need somebody to go in and to scan those papers and to save them for posterity, because Mark is an insider par excellence. And so he's about to lose his house and maybe even his life work. I'm trying to rescue it. I'm going to be putting out some kind of fundraiser, online, a fundraising effort. I'm just talking to people that can advise me so that it's done correctly and they don't steal the money. As you hear, fundraisers sometimes happen like that, and so on. But just want to say that Mark is also going to be on the founder board for this UFO complex, which is a secret space UFO. It's going to cover all the topics that relate to that. And if you want to call them UAPs, go ahead. That's fine too.
Well, that's an interesting initiative. I'm curious, since John Lear passed away, do you know where all of this went, all of his research?
Isn't it amazing? And see, people don't realize that there are photographs, there are documents, there are videos, there are things that these people have collected their whole lives. And their family members often don't even give a shit. Or they don't know what to do with it, or they're overwhelmed by it, or whatever it happens to be. In John Lear's case, he has several daughters. So I know that his daughters are, responsible people. I don't know what the family dynamic is there. Sometimes when people pass on, as you may know, there's, family members sort of try to contest each other. There's also theatrical rights to, in John Lear's case, even a theatrical movie that has been developed to a certain point. So we're not talking about something that's worthless. We're talking about something that is worth a lot of money. And if you can think of art galleries that are showing paintings, and this is like a natural history museum based on reality, the real history that we are all a part of. And so this is so crucial. And I think, I'm getting a very positive response so far. I don't, I mean, obviously it's early days. We're just
Right.
positing this idea and trying to bring on some people that can
I
help
think
us.
we have to do this as humans, Kerry, because otherwise it gets back into the hand of the government. If you think of
Exactly.
when Nikola Tesla died, it's the government office of alien affairs that took his property.
All their affairs just
Yeah.
swept away, and then suddenly they're wiping away history. They're rewriting it. They're hiding all the truth. The as I say, the 80 plus years of lies that the public has been told, because it's all unraveling right now. I mean, this is really an age of truth.
Right.
And we are being assisted by waves of energy coming into our galaxy at this time, coming into the Earth. So this is not going to change. Okay. The truth, the unveiling, some call it the apocalypse. This is what we're part of right now. And this will go down in the history of humanity as the time of the awakening, the time of when humans no longer, sort of took the blinders away from their eyes and finally admitted to all the truths that we've been talking about now, at least in my case, for over 18 years publicly, and before that, investigating and so on.
Do you find, Kerry, that it's bittersweet in a way? As you're saying here, we're seeing this apocalypse play out, or what Cliff calls the big ugly, the big unveiling. And in some cases, we're having friends and family come back to us and say, Kerry, that thing you were talking about a few years ago, holy shit, I just saw that on the news, right? They're starting to be there. So on one hand, we kind of want to say, I told you so. But on the other hand, we know there's so much more to be unveiled, and we're so behind the 8 ball that we need to go a lot faster. So we don't have time for that. I told you so. Do you feel that bittersweet moment also here as you're getting this vindication in some cases?
Yes, I think that's true. Even with the latest whistleblower testimonies and the latest little, tic tac and all this kind of stuff, it's really a twisted, as you say, bittersweet unveiling, because on the one hand, we've been doing this, in my case, for quite a long time, and, risking our lives, getting threats, getting, derisive comments, people making fun of me for years, calling me all kinds of names. And this, I'm not an exception at all. We're all in that kind of bucket. But the reality is that these people owe us a huge apology, for the truth that we have brought forward. And I believe eventually the apologies will come. I have over the years gotten a few individual people coming back to me saying, oh my God, I had no idea back then. I'm so sorry. People who really, I'm telling you, who rake you through the coals in the media publicly.
Yeah.
And people that have been hiding behind being trolls. And of course, the CIA trolls, the paid trolls, we're talking
and all the
about
censorship machine, Kerry, involved in this economic warfare against truthers. You've lost your channel. I've lost mine. We're no strangers to all of that. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's encouraging to see now this apocalypse playing out. I wanted to play this clip here, and I wish Jim was on with us here too. I just got another email. He's still trying to connect, but he's having trouble. So he's rebooting now. So hopefully we'll get him on. Let me play this clip for the audience members here. This is the part 2 of our show here on the psychological operations. In here, we have a KGB defector talking about ideological subversion. And when you listen to him and you see the tactics that were being used and being described, so far, every time I played this clip, Kerry, I've played it on a couple of different shows, people resonate and go, oh, wait. That's what's happening to us now, right? So when you say, hey, we need to take the blinders off, or what he says, take your bananas out of your ear, once you see the tactics that are being used, it's always the same playbook. Now we have the opportunity to say, aha, here's the enemy. How do we address it? Do we get fooled no longer, so to speak? So let me play maybe 2 minutes of it here first.
Sure.
And then I want to get it back into you with you on the subject of the psychological operations, but how they're happening on both sides of the spectrum right now. In my last interview a couple of months ago with Ricardo Bossi, he said, hey, if you're confused right now, you're supposed to be, because both sides are lying to you. And at what point do we ask and demand better, perhaps, from the white hats? And this is the conversation I want to have with you today. So let's play this clip, and I'll be right back here. All right. This one here. There you go.
We spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion. What do they mean?
Ideological subversion is the process which is legitimate, overt, and open. You can see it with your own eyes. All you have to do, all American mass media has to do, is to unplug their bananas from their ears, open up their eyes, and they can see it. There's no mystery. There's nothing to do with espionage. I know that espionage intelligence gathering looks more romantic. It sells more deodorants through the advertising, probably. That's why your Hollywood producers are so crazy about James Bond type of thrillers. But in reality, the main emphasis of the KGB is not in the area of intelligence at all. According to my opinion and opinion of many defectors of my caliber, only about 15% of time, money, and manpower is spent on espionage as such. The other 85% is a slow process, which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for now, and you guys can go watch the rest of that clip there on Twitter. Kerry, when we talk about this ideological subversion and this slow process, to some extent, you've talked about these maybe 80 years or 70 years of secrecy since Kennedy was shot, and this ideological subversion tactic here on the West maybe really took hold. Can we go back in history a little bit and maybe share with the audience members the time markers in all of this, and where you see perhaps we still had a chance to where we find ourselves now today, where we're completely behind the 8 ball, as the gentleman here is saying, where even if we're presented with all of these truths, most American cannot take a decision here to protect themselves and their family because they're completely ideologically subverted. Let's talk about temporal markers.
Okay, well, I'm not sure about markers. I'd have to, maybe you can give me an example of what you're looking for, but there's an overall approach. And actually, Captain Mark Richards said to me one time, he said, they don't have to monitor or, control us as much as we think, because we're controlling each other and policing each other. And basically, that's true. And it's never been more true, I would say, than right now. When you see basically, and this is a generalization, I realize, but the Democrats actually crying wolf every time anything is done and anything is said. And now they're this idea that the CIA basically constructed this way of discounting the truth and calling it a conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. It's a conspiracy fact, and conspiracies are a fact of life. But what that did, that meme, as they call it, that the CIA put out there, changed people's way of looking at the truth in a way nothing else could in some ways, and questioning actually the truth. And so when, even now, I just was watching this presenter on Epic TV, and the Epic Times, and he's very good. And I'm sorry I don't have his name in front of me, but yesterday he did this very droll rollout, very calm, revealing actual cases of the pedophilia and the child trafficking, and people who had been prosecuted, gone to trial, and were now in prison, and saying that this is so strange because Democrats are blanketing this entire sort of realization movement being stimulated by the Sound of Freedom, as a QAnon conspiracy, saying, in essence, child trafficking, pedophilia doesn't exist. It's complete madness. They're in denial, and they are wrapping it into this idea of it being a quote unquote conspiracy theory, which is just completely wrong. So they've been doing that to us forever. okay, in what we're talking about. And eventually I have no doubt whatsoever, I will be vindicated across the board in everything that I've been disclosing, not just a few things, but everything. And I know that probably sounds wild and egotistical or whatever, but I'm sure of it. Okay. Because I have the testimony and the evidence to back up what I talk about.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So I think that, yes, there is this subversion of the mind. And of course, these are tactics of MK Ultra. They were developed back in the day of the Nazis, the Tavistock Institute, the Rand Institute on the West Coast of America, all involved in this rollout of subverting the truth, of basically getting people to only believe the Mockingbird, we call it the Mockingbird media, was a concerted, careful rollout and something that started way back, really during the Nazi era, and then brought over with paperclip, influenced, and their realization that they were part of something that they did not want the public to know about. And from there on, they began to figure out ways to subvert us. And, there's old advertising and even old sci-fi movies and various things where during the movie, late at night, they would put out messages telling you, only obey. I mean, these stories, right? Now, these are real. These are real. It's unbelievable when you've seen it.
It was documented in the movie They Live.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But you can actually see where they were actually doing it late at night on television in America, in England, and I'm not sure about the rest of the world. So we're looking at a whole rollout of a misinformation, disinfo, way of packaging the revelations that are coming out even today, such that people that are programmed all these years, never learned how to really question their reality, are now coming forward with these stupid statements and making fools of themselves, in essence, in the press every day.
Right.
And luckily, we have some relatively sober, especially happens to be a lot of Republicans, who are basically saying no, that this is wrong, that we shouldn't have our children changing their gender at 3 years old, that we shouldn't have stop freedom of speech in America, even though Biden thinks you should.
Right.
I mean, the thought police, everything that was in 1984, we're on that in steroids. Okay. Yeah. They completely overnight deleted my YouTube channel.
Hold on, Kerry, just a second here. I believe Jim is just connected for some reason. I think his camera is working now. So let me try to do the introduction here for Jim. Of course, folks joining us here on Rumble, thank you so much. Jim, he's the hat trick letter, Dr. Jim Willie here at the golden-jackass.com. Mr. Jim Willie. Jim, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm okay. I had 20 minutes of obstruction with StreamYard. I cannot explain it, but I've got absolutely nothing else. Oh
no. Did we just lose him? Kerry, are you still there too?
I am.
Okay.
Let me just suggest in the future that StreamYard is very difficult and unstable. Sorry to say. And so I do encourage you to try Zoom or some other technology, but go ahead.
Okay, will do. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone, for waiting so patiently here for Jim Willie. A lot of people in the chat looking for you, Jim, here. Let me start here. Let's backtrack a little bit, Jim. We were just talking about now, I showed a clip on ideological subversion and how we're being messed with on both sides of the fences here, also from the white hats and the black hats. Before we get into that conversation, let's just backtrack with you also. In our last show, Jim, you talked about several items that you were looking on your radar in terms of events, not necessarily timelines, but events that would occur here as we move the dial forward in time. One of them was the introduction of this gold-backed currency. We just had the announcement here that this is coming up in August, and we're seeing rumblings also here of these new CBDCs coming out in light of the announcement that just came in today. Jim, you're vindicated on this here too, that the SEC has ruled in favor of XRP, it not being a security. So that was just announced earlier today
Yep.
at 1 p.m. Eastern. So Jim, what are some of the things right now on your radar as you're looking at this financial warfare playing out? What do you need to tell the audience members here to look out for?
Well, first of all, hi, Kerry. Nice to see you. And
You too.
bonjour, Jean-Claude. Comment vas-tu?
Très bien, merci.
It's been a long time since I've done my French. Golly, it's been 40 years. Anyway, I've been focusing on what I call the vectors. The vectors. And, you know, this is not a new concept, but it's a mathematical concept for explaining. It's like several different things. They're all pointing. They're all coming down. They're all seeming to converge. I'd like to make a comment about the BRICS. The BRICS now have Iran in the BRICS, so there are two eyes. Okay, that's very important. And soon Saudi will be in, so there'll be two S's. And Tom Luongo called it something that I hadn't seen before, but makes a lot of sense. He called it the RCI BRICS, Russia, China, Iran. Those are the three leading chairs of the BRICS. Okay, I'd like to clear something up. There's some, it's not exactly deception. I would call it careful, crafty, intelligent introduction by the BRICS of what they have planned. And they're not telling us what they have planned. If they give a good layout of all the schematics for what they're doing, they're going to get sabotaged. They're going to get murdered. They're going to get bribed into obstruction of key players. I don't think they're going to come out with a currency, and they're going to continue to say currency. And it's really quite funny. They're faking out the Anglo-American bankers. They're probably, I'm thinking like 90% certain, they're going to do something like what Zimbabwe did. They're going to come out with a gold token. They're going to use the gold token for trade settlement on a net bilateral basis. They're not going to come out with a currency. They're not going to sell bonds. They're not going to set interest rates. They're going to make a trade payment vehicle. It'll be a gold token. It'll be gold backed. There'll be gold moving from country to country on a net basis, maybe quarterly, I don't know. But they're not going to come out with a currency. They're not going to compete with the dollar. They're going to let the dollar die on its own weight of debt. I mean, every 5, 6, 7 months, another trillion is stacked on. So to me, there are two, maybe three, because I heard what you said, Kerry, and it makes a lot of sense. The three vectors are the BRICS are going to come out with a gold token that will compete with the dollar on trade payment basis only. The second one is the U.S. government debt is imploding. It's collapsing. The whole structure is collapsing. And it's a three-part structure: the banks, the bonds, and the government itself. And the third is awareness. I am shocked, and I'm very happy to say that a lot of Americans are waking up, and it's the marginal people who are bright and who have been fooled. The liberal retards, I really believe they're hopeless. I think they're hopeless. They're not teachable. They can't assemble information. They can't do critical thinking. They're brainwashed, and they're fucking stupid shits. We have now a new awareness that has begun, and I'm happy to say that I was making rather clear statements in May and June that the sound of freedom would not reach the movie theaters, that it would be obstructed. And I thought that if it did reach theaters, it might reach maybe 5%, maybe 7% of theaters, 1 in 10, give or take. And my buddy Ron at Untold History did a quick check while we were doing an interview a couple weekends ago. And he said, no, Jim, we got a dozen theaters in Los Angeles here. I got another 20 here, another 8 there, another 10 there. And I thought, wow, that looks like it's at least a third. And he said, it could be more. Okay. AMC is going to get slammed because they turned the air conditioning to be freezing cold. They turned down the volume and they pulled fire alarms in the theaters. They did all kinds of dirty tricks. What people need to realize is that fascists use dirty tricks to capture your government, and then they don't give it back. Okay, so we got the BRICS and a gold token to compete with the dollar for trade. We have the multi-sided U.S. dollar structure. Notice that J.P. Morgan in the last month has not acquired another dead bank because it's very difficult for a dead bank to acquire another dead bank. Let that sink in. The awareness is pretty interesting. I got a graphic. I tend to call it a cartoon, but it's a graphic. It's a picture and then a mocking caption. And it showed this, a guy looking over San Francisco, still looking for pro-jab retards on social networks. And I said back to my friend, maybe they should have that where this guy is looking over a cemetery. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the awareness is increasing. Social networks are increasing. And there's a quote, pardon me, I got over the weekend, I think it was Friday, reported over the weekend, there was a press conference with the Pentagon. And a Pentagon spokesman actually said, the war has turned out to be a disaster for Ukraine. And the press reporter said, you mean for Russia?
He says, yes, I mean Ukraine. I mean, shit.
And the Pentagon guy said, no, unfortunately, I mean Ukraine. It's a disaster for Ukraine. And now I heard, I got a little piece that said that NATO is turning against Zelensky. Okay, we're having an international global awakening. And it's amazing. And I don't think that it's going to be completely across the planet. I think it's going to be like for 2/3, I don't know exactly, 2/3, 3/4 of the people, they're going to wake up. They're going to wake up. They're going to think, what the hell is going on? I've been lied to. The Ukraine was a lie. The Biden win was a lie. The pandemic was a lie. 9/11 was a lie.
Hello?
Everything's been a lie. And remember, the CIA director about 30 years ago said, we will know we have a complete success when everything the Americans think is a lie.
And we're here now. This is
it. And I say this is a climax of a baseless dollar that broke away from the gold standard in 1971. Are you enjoying the climax? Are you enjoying the U.S. government debt at 32 trillion, growing $1 trillion every half year? Are you enjoying the war in Ukraine to support money laundering, where trafficking of every kind? And I like to wake people up. It's not just trafficking of drugs, trafficking of children. It's not trafficking just of human organs. It's baby farms. It's in vitro 1,000-unit baby farms. On adrenochrome harvesting centers. People are going to be shocked. The main question I'm asking people who came out of Sound of Silence is, what was the reaction? What did you see? Well, first of all, did the movie come off? Did you get to see the movie during the showing of the movie? But then what was the reaction? And I think it was about 5 people reacted and said, Jim, it was somber. Not much conversation to be heard when people were leaving. Not, well, that was really cool. No, somber. Walking out in silence. Oh, Sound of Freedom. I call it Sound of Silence. I get confused. It's Sound of Freedom. The awakening to me is exciting because it means that people won't just wake up. They're going to be angry. They're going to be looking for action. Some will be looking for retribution. Some will be looking for compensation. We haven't really done much in wrongful death lawsuits with Big Pharma, and Big Pharma is now openly, bit by bit, leak by leak, drop by drop, admitting that it's a killer vaccine. We haven't seen wrongful death lawsuits. And mainly because we got Obama judges and we got the International Court of The Hague. They're all dirty. You know, the U.S. they're Obama stooges, and The Hague is a Rockefeller office. This is ridiculous. Okay, the Reiner Fulmick, the German guy from California, bilingual fellow, his efforts went nowhere. David Martin tried to join it. It went nowhere. Okay, so the awakening now is going to be brutal. It could be pitchforks. It could be torches. And I saw a great cartoon.
Hold on.
Just quickly, I saw a great cartoon. Yeah. It was a bunch of leaders looking at the pitchforks and the torches, and they said, don't worry, we can divide them. We'll tell the pitchfork people that the torch people want to take away their pitchforks. Okay, you know, I'm not easily fooled. I got a good bullshit meter. Okay, go ahead, John Claude.
I want to see that cartoon. That's a good one. What's divide and conquer tactic? Yes, that's been used against us all this time. Just to go back on this go back currency here, Yellen was asked a question here at this press conference, and she was saying that don't worry, 99% of the information I've seen suggests that the U.S. dollar will continue to be used for international trade, and she's having trouble saying that. With a straight face, folks. Go check out this clip.
I think she only canvassed her friends.
Right, exactly.
And that's
of the information that I've seen.
A shrinking pool.
No, but I mean, Jim, you and I have been talking about escape velocity here and other countries moving away from the dollar for years now. And we have that critical mass now, as we were reporting maybe 6 or 8 months ago on the show. Kerry, let's go back to this ideological subversion conversation here with the audience members. Let me just bring up the chat back up here again. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You mentioned this in a show a while back with SGN and this is what triggered me into having this conversation here. And I wanted to have Jim on this with you as well. So on one hand, we have the black hats here, as Jim was just saying here, the CIA. We won't know that our job is complete until everything everybody believes is completely false. We're here now to the point where we just had Miss Universe be crowned.
Oh no!
And it has a penis. So
insane!
Right, it's so insane, right? We're at that point now too. Now, in that conversation, Kerry, you had with SGN, you were talking about the frustration that is building now, and we're seeing it now. It's palpable in the truther community. In the Patriot community, where we're saying, hey, the white hats to some extent are in control of a lot of the shit show we're watching now today. And to what extent do we let them continue to be perpetrating a lot of these hoax on us in the hopes of winning this war? We understand the objective, but how long can they go without the white hats and the truther community say, hey, hold on. Me, the new boss, same as the old boss. You're still lying to us, the same as the old boss was. At what point does that end? Explain to the audience members what you're feeling right now, and I want you, Jim, to chime in on this too, about how we're all getting tired of this long fucking move and everybody lying to us. When does this shit hit the fan, and when do we actually see some justice? Kerry, let's start with you.
Okay, so first I want to address something that Jim said. I know, so don't let me lose the train here, but okay. I just want to say one thing. I have contacts who have told me that the reason we don't see those lawsuits you're talking about, the COVID lawsuits that should be everywhere, is because the people who would bring the lawsuits were paid off. And I'm sad to tell you that, but that is the reality. So I have been told they have been given hundreds of millions of dollars to shut the fuck up and sign non-disclosure agreements to do so. So that is, and we're talking about a lot of times families who can't afford, jack shit after going through all these nonsense in the hospitals and whatnot and this and that. Right. And, so you can kind of understand it, but damn it, let's have some whistleblowers out of that group. I would love it.
Kerry, will it become an autism fund by Big Pharma? My sister's an attorney, and she says that 15% of her business is getting the payouts from Big Pharma for a no contest application for autism damage. You think it'll come to that?
Oh yeah. Like, what could they do about it? I'm sorry. They don't have a solution because they don't know jack about real healing. Okay. But I don't, I've done interviews on autism, so there are cures. Okay. But of course, Big Pharma would never let you go near them. Okay. So I wouldn't listen to anything that they're going to twist into something that
No. What Jim is saying is that they're going to put a fund here, no contest, to eventually pay out all of these people that are asking for damages.
Yeah.
They have
understand. They'll pay them off, but they're also behind that would be this idea that they're going to generate some new drug. I mean, just, going down that road. But anyway, okay. So backing up to this idea of, are the white hats lying to us the same way that the dark side are? And I have, done several interviews about this. I've written articles about it. I can tell you some of the things, the exact things that they're lying about. All right. And of course, that gets into the secret space program. It gets into the adrenochrome highway. So we've got Sound of Freedom. Yes, we've got that. But what we don't have is like Jim said, the baby farms, the actual adrenochrome, what I call the adrenochrome highway, the real nitty gritty as to why all of this is happening and where the pay dirt from human trafficking really exists, and why, in essence, adrenochrome is a drug. You get addicted. You can't stop it once you start it, because what will happen to you is you will shrivel up like a prune, in essence. And this has actually happened to some of our actors who their supply ran low,
and like Celine Dion
ran low, or
like
whatever it was.
Share.
Payback, for. And let me say one thing on behalf of actors and so on. Some of these people got hooked before they knew what they were hooked on. You understand? It's packaged. It's a cosmetic. It's a get, well fast kind of, solution. It's adrenochrome. It comes from torturing their victims. Okay. But this also links up, and I know no one's going to want to hear this necessarily on this channel, but eventually it's going to come around to this, it is the reptilians' aphrodisiac as well. So understand, the humans learned this somewhere. Okay. Yep. This didn't just get generated a few, years ago because they got a wild idea that they could do this shit. Okay. No, this is actually embedded in the culture. And there are many, many aspects to that. I can get into it in great detail because I happen to know a great deal about it. Okay. So what we're talking about is the white hats trying to do what you might call is a PG, I don't know if that's the right word, PC, meaning it keeping everything on a certain mainstream consciousness level to where these people don't fucking like lemmings go off a cliff, okay, when they hear the real truth.
They got to dumb it down so that people can adjust very slowly.
Again, this is an Illuminati tactic, and they use so many Illuminati tactics. It makes me very upset.
Yeah.
But boiling the frog slowly is always the thing. Okay. So they never want to hit you with the real thing right in the face, which I think is the wrong way to go. That's my attitude. Okay. Right. Now I will say that I'm very pleased with the success of Sound of Freedom. However, I want to tell you guys, I don't think you understand this, but I was invited by Wano Savin and a group of media to a Friday night party, cocktail party, and weekend screening of Sound of Freedom. I think it's 3 years ago now. Okay, so I don't have the exact date of when that happened. It might have been it's February, March of either 2020 or 2021, one of those.
It has to be 2021, I believe.
Okay.
But go ahead. Doesn't matter.
Okay. So and so we're 3 years in, I think.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about here is that I know this is tough for people, but I had conversations face to face, even then, with 107, and there are two of them, one with blue eyes and one with brown. And their deal was actually he rescued this movie. This movie had already come out online and was being more or less ignored. And somehow he got wind of it, maybe through Caviezel, who's one of the stars, and they struck up a friendship somehow. And what has happened is that this is 107, CFK Jr., who has opened doors to distributors, to people in film, to people in Hollywood. And then he went basically and packaged this movie. He had a plan, he had a rollout, and he did all of this. Okay, this was his baby, and I know that for a fact. So it doesn't matter what people want to say, because I talked to him about it back then. And back then, I argued with him about it. I said, why are you going to wait for a theatrical release when you could release it right now on Netflix? And he stuck with his guns. He had his rationale. And of course, it has to do, again, with the boiling the frog idea. The idea that the mainstream couldn't handle stuff that I talk about, okay? They can't handle the real truth yet. They needed some preliminary. And he was right, as it happened. And why wouldn't he be? This is a mastermind, a master marketer of George Magazine. He was trained to understand what the audience wants, what the audience can handle on a certain milieu. Okay, now I'm trained in that as well. And I come from another direction, okay? And I can argue my side as well. But what I'm telling you is that he has the connections. And you look, I worked in Hollywood for 20 years. I know exactly what I'm talking. I worked for major studios, for the top executives, and I know what I'm talking about here.
Okay.
These people will not be
who
moved.
is your he? Who is he? You're not specific.
107.
107.
107 is the one who masterminded this. Okay.
He masterminded the re-release of this
J-
already
J07.
finished film that was going by the wayside 3 years ago.
Okay.
And one of his first, you might say, target groups was the alternative media, who he did this weekend in Vegas, where he invited us to come and see it, and then obviously monitored our reactions and so on. So I just want people to understand people are not going to give him the credit he deserves, okay, because they don't understand what it is to deal with Hollywood on making a deal for distribution, breaking into the theaters. This is a cabal. This is an airtight cabal. It's run at the top by Spielberg, among others. I mean, you have to understand what he accomplished by getting this movie, not only to get out to the mainstream, but to go head to head on July 4th.
With Disney.
With Indiana fucking Jones.
Uh-huh.
You understand me.
And
this is incredible. It's an incredible feat in terms of what is possible. It is in part possible, again, because of since childhood, he has been in that world, okay? He was always involved in entertainment. He wanted to be an actor. Well, he's been an actor. He's been acting 107, okay? He's in disguise. He looks like Santa Claus, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I have tons of, pictures. There's pictures out there. He appears in public in this disguise. It's laughable. It's so fake, okay? Anyone who thinks they're looking at a real guy is just deaf, dumb, and blind. All right. So I just want you to understand where we're coming from here. So this was a white hat. He is a white hat. He and Trump are a triumvirate running the white hats. Okay. And this is one of their plans. And this is a very successful one. And so I am very happy for them. I want them to get the credit they deserve. All right. And of course, that the people are starting to wake up. So now it's in every discussion place. I mean, it's done better, I think, than anyone could have imagined. Okay.
It's also a divining rod. We got the Rolling Stone with a negative review. Now
Yeah.
we're starting to see
and we have
who gives
Nino
a
and
negative review.
yes, I know. And Nino basically, Nino Rodriguez, he's got a very good channel, and he does what I do, in essence. And he said he just came out and said, people that want to laugh at this film, who think it's a lie or make fun of it or whatever they do, he said they're basically pedos. They're secretly pedos. They have to be,
Ooh,
because
ooh.
how could you?
Great comment. Great comment.
How could you turn against this film? It is
Yeah.
about a real problem.
Who
It's a
speaks out
real
about bringing pedos to justice? Well, pedos. Certainly not people watching the show here or anybody on the screen.
And
I'll
keep
get back
in
to
mind that
Nino.
the
Hold
United
on a second,
Nations
Jim.
wants to legalize pedophilia.
Oh yeah, the normalization of that. Yeah,
because
we were
they're
talking about that
pedos.
earlier.
Hello, can
Yeah.
people really wrap? Our government. This is only started.
Right.
It's already. Do you know that the top BBC presenter is basically being outed right now as a pedo?
Yep.
I mean, come on. This is, and going back in time, what was that guy's name that was such a
Seville.
famous pedo over there?
Gervais.
Demi Seville.
Governments
Yep.
are pedos. People that work in government, Epstein, the honeypot. They were brought in, even if they didn't start out as pedos.
Yeah.
They were brought in. They were brought into this kind of nonsense, crazy, what it is, bloodlust, to feed on other humans.
Mhm.
And it gets worse and worse and worse.
And,
the
okay, so
descriptions
hold
are
on. We're going to
amazing.
get into the weeds here. I just want to make sure everybody's following us. So we could do a whole show on the ET provenance of this adrenochrome factory. That whole we'll do a whole other show on that. That's not
Can
for
I
today.
pitch in? Can I pitch
I'm
in?
not,
Like,
I don't have
short-
to, we're not emphasizing the ET side.
No. I just
You
hold
want
on.
to know no, let me finish.
Yeah.
You want to know what the white hats are lying about. And I'm trying to tell you that they're not so much lying as they're trying to redirect your
Manage.
attention.
Right.
Okay. By omission.
Mhm.
Because they want you to look at certain places. Okay.
Mhm.
And they have told me to my face, and they've told Simon Parks, another well-known broadcaster who has an ET heritage that he talks about.
Right.
He was even a politician in England, so he's not in secret.
With the man.
And he's quite well known. To our face, don't bring up the ET subject.
Mhm.
That's what they told us. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a misdirect. This is a redirect of the
Right.
energy. That is what the mainstream has been doing all along.
Right.
So they're not innocent, but they do have a good intention as to why they're getting you to focus on certain things and not others. I don't agree with it. I can give you a great argument as to why it's not a good tactic.
Well, that's what
And
I
think
want to
it's
get
falling
into.
down,
Sure.
but we can have another show on that if you like.
Right. No, and that's what I want to get into. Like in the movie itself, The Sound of Freedom, they relegate the pedophiles as the crazy sex offender down the street. They don't talk about the baby farms, as you just talked about, the adrenochrome making. But in this interview with Dr. Peterson, yes, both of them do get into these baby farms now. So we're slowly moving the dial on that information. So there appears to be, as you're saying there, that boiling frog
talks
tech.
about adrenochrome.
Yeah. And so, guys, just to let you know here, Juan did confirm this is the show we were supposed to do on June 27. He was in Africa. We couldn't get the connection working at the time, I believe. So it's back on now. It's going to be July 27. So I'll redo the poster a little bit later on today, and I'll bring that back on the schedule for you guys. But Juan will be back on the show, and we'll talk about this. Now, Kerry, going back to 107 here and the White Hats lying to us, and whether or not the White Hats, the Patriots, are getting long in the tooth with all of this subversion also coming from what we perceive to be the good guys. Now, because you brought in 107, let's backtrack to a couple of conversations and interviews where he said, listen, the military needs a certain percentage of the population to be awake in order to be able to achieve their objectives, right?
That's right.
So he said that. Now, in counterpart to that, as we're seeing more and more of this slow boiling, some would suggest now that we raised our consciousness, and now because of this slow boiling, some of them are starting to back away from the Patriot movement, the awakening movement, because again, they're long in the tooth. How do we consolidate both of those things, and where are we at that line now, and how does that put pressure moving forward for the Patriots, for the White Hats, to actually go through and get to the kill shot moment. That's what we're waiting for. I'll start with you, Kerry, and then I want to bring Jim on that same question. Go ahead.
Okay. So let me explain one thing. I know people think I'm crazy because I harp on the fact that 107 is JFK Jr. The reason that matters is because JFK is the entire inspiration behind the White Hats and the military who back Trump. Okay, so wrap your mind around that first fact. Then you have to understand that JFK Jr. was brought up in a culture taught, in a politician's family about how you talk to the public, how you deal with the public, what the public can and can't handle, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you can't handle the truth. That's a famous, scene, Jack Nicholson, right?
Yeah.
That is also the point of view of generally speaking, of the military, which Mark Richards has told me. He said that their attitude is civilians can't handle the real truth. Only the military can handle that, okay? And that's why they cushion it. They soften the blow. They cover up. They lie to you. They lie to your fucking face. And they do it all the time.
Yeah.
So understanding the rationale of the leadership of the White Hats, okay? And I know people are not going to like this, but nonetheless, okay, David Straight is a lawyer. He's also a special forces guy who worked for Trump, okay? There's a famous thing in 4th of July that he flew Trump and JFK to go on top of Mount Rushmore, just as a lark or whatever. And there were photographs of it. And I have that on my channel. There's a video that, you see them from very far away, so and so. But he testifies to the public and has been doing for years saying this. JFK Jr. is our vice president under the Republic. Trump never lost. Trump is still in power. And he is also the commander in chief that was re-sworn in after Biden took office illegally in around March. I don't forget the exact the date. The military re-swore Trump in as the commander in chief. Trump has the codes. This is you have to understand the basis of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So when
even the media admitted they never gave the nuclear football to Biden that a couple of weeks after he got elected.
I was at Minden, a rally for Trump, where he said very quietly, he did a whole speech about the codes, about which presidents had them, then lost them, etc. And he basically said, Clinton lost them, Biden lost them, I have them. He said that. I don't think most of the crowd heard him, but I fucking did. Okay. And I was there in person.
Clinton.
So all I'm saying here is that you want to know you have to understand their tactics and the way they look at things. Number one, they're using an AI. Number two, they're using the generals. What do generals do to get to their positions? They kiss ass, and they do it very seriously for years and years and years, right? Now they have talent. I'm not saying they don't. They could be brilliant. That's all great. They could be good tacticians, whatever, tacticians. But the point being is that understand that this is a culture. It's a milieu. They understand humans because of what they've been brought up in. Now, I want to address something very serious about this that does, I hope it's okay, has to do with some statements and a video that Kim Gogan supposedly put out among the White Hats and among people, okay? I haven't seen it. I can't testify to it. I don't think it's true, okay, personally, because I happen to know about this situation called deep fakes that has to do with the fact that they can substitute anybody doing anything in any video in real time, and you will be convinced that that's real. It is a technology they have. They've had it since at least 2016 and probably before. I put 2 articles on my website, and my entire website was taken down and destroyed for 6 days when I did this, okay? So I want you to understand what I'm talking about. There is a movie. It's a television series. It's British. Like they like to tell you what they're doing before they do it, or even after they do it. Mm-hmm. And it's called The Capture. Watch it. Understand. They can fake evidence right, left, and center using video. So let me tell you what she did. So she sent out this thing about him, raping babies or doing some crazy fucking thing.
About
right?
Trump doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Recently. This
Okay.
is recent. And she made a big explanation and so on. Now, I have talked to her off the record. I understand that she's being run by certain in my opinion, dark side. I'm getting frozen. That's interesting. Dark side generals. Okay. I happen to know because my job is to interview people. I have to psych out the people I interview because I interview them not for 5 minutes, but for 2 hours. And I interview what are called whistleblowers. So I'm very good, and I have a sort of a second sense. And I will tell you that even 107 himself did one interview with me and said he will never do another interview with me because I have a way of getting people to break their security oaths, meaning I get them to tell the real truth, the truth they don't want to tell. Okay, so I am just telling you that in my discussions with Kim, what I have gathered from her, and she's a lovely, intelligent woman. I like her actually as a person, but she is taken over and she is controlled by a certain group that have a definite desire to take down the white hats. Okay, so she keeps bringing people back to what's called the Black Sun and to the heritage that both JFK Jr. and Trump come from. Look, you could say you can't help your family, you can't be responsible. Hitler had sons and daughters. Okay, well, Barbara Bush is supposedly his daughter. Okay, and Crowley, same thing, and so on and so forth. So we're talking about sons and daughters. And do they have to be the same as their parents? No. And in the case of JFK Jr., take a look at John F. Kennedy. What we got was a diamond out of, years of shit, okay, years of lies, years of covert actions, behind the scenes, whatever you want to call it. So do not be deceived by this. Understand each of us can be born into a very dark family and you can enter the light. It's your choice. It's what you do with your life. Yeah. And these people are heroes. So never forget that. And it will be proven, what I'm saying, as time goes on. In the case of Sound of Freedom, we have evidence, and other people don't know the backstory like I know it, but I can tell you because I know Hollywood so well, and I can simply tell you that you don't do deals with these people unless you know that world, and you know it intimately, and they know you. Keep that in mind. They don't just let anyone walk through those doors and make deals with them. It's very, very closed, secret society, totally controlled like a machine.
Right.
So just saying.
Thank you.
I've answered your question.
Yes, and I just want to get Jim in on this, and I'll come back to you too. I have a supplementary question on that. But just going back on Kim Gogan here, Janine and I did a decode on this a couple of years ago, and again, she's been at this Black Sun lineage against Trump here for quite some time. And what we got through this particular report was that I don't want to even get into it. I just want to say I agree with you, Kerry, on that. There's deception there involved. Now, Jim, in your introduction, you talked about these three vectors. The third one was the awakening. And so in this conversation here of this awakening and how that is going to propel us moving forward here to the end goal, how does this ideological subversion being used by the white hats against us, the population at large here, to reduce or limit the awakening process, or to some extent, some would suggest, get us angered and probably disengage in this enfranchise from this war affair? What do you see in that, Jim?
Let me touch on my notes because I've got a lot of what I regard to be important items. First of all, the movie Sound of Freedom, I call it Sound of Silence, pardon me. The movie is a divining rod. Let's watch to see who comes out against it. There are already some Hollywood actors who've spoken against. There are already some newspapers who've spoken against. There's already been, Rolling Stone, which I regard as a captured magazine from maybe 5 or 7 years ago. They came out against. Okay. I believe it's very possible Juan O'Savin has some blackmail information that he used against Hollywood in order to win the release of this movie, because let's face it, he's got a pretty interesting background that I don't even want to discuss. When he worked for Langley as a hitman, let's just leave that alone. So he probably has some good leverage. Okay.
And just to interject there, Jim, the rights to the movies were also at Disney. They were the ones who were shelving this movie to not come out. Also, Disney.
It had to be wrestled
we
away
wonder
from
why.
Disney. So therefore, there might be some evidence with videos about Disney executives being involved with a lot of nasty stuff. Let me hit on my items because they're really good ones. Let me go in order for what I jotted down. Okay, to be sure, the White Hats have a strategy. I've been hearing that it's not simply AI being used. It's our AI versus the Black Hat AI. We each have supercomputers at work. We each have scenarios that are being examined. We each have rules that are being governed in the simulations. And I'll just throw out a little zinger. There might be a little time travel involved in the simulation, and I don't want to get involved in that. I object to the uniform name to accuse these people of being pedophiles. Pedophile is someone who touches Judy's tutu and Johnny's thingamajig. We're talking about child killers.
Pedivores, yeah.
Pedivores. These aren't, in the British newspapers, they're calling them pedophiles, and they're identifying royals and bankers as being pedophiles. And I object and say, why don't you take it to the next level and at least have examinations about who's a murderer and who's a child sacrificer and who's a supporter of adrenochrome harvesting farm. Okay, get my point. I believe that we are in a position where if we bring out 5 different areas of exposure, it's going to be overwhelming even to people that I regard as good people, like my sister. Okay? I have tremendous respect for my sister. I don't think she pursues the various plots very deeply, but for her integrity and for intelligence and for her ability to say no, that's wrong. Okay, I've got tremendous respect. And she's a good litmus test for me. She can't handle ET right now. So let's leave that alone. We don't need to bring everything up at once. You know, if you got a lot of weapons, a stupid approach in war is to show them all at once. You don't do that. You show a few preliminaries and you look for reactions, and then you bring out your other weapons, and then you make some decisions about how you're going to run the rest of your campaign. All right. So what they're doing right now is they're saying we're going to show pedophilia. We're going to show child slavery. And we're going to leave the rest alone, and we're not going to touch ET right now. Okay, fine. Here's a zinger for you. And this came out with Derek Johnson. He said, if you look closely at the Biden inauguration, you'll see that everyone wore black, and there was a 3-cannon salute by the military, which signifies a funeral. It was a funeral, and they portrayed it as an inauguration. And I don't even want to get into the upside down crucifix for the Satanic Bible. Let's leave that alone. Okay, Kerry, you mentioned that Clinton lost the nuclear football, and that was immediately after the Sandia Labs incident. And 2 or 3 years later was the Alabama downing of the 8 generals on an airplane and the military changed their protocol where generals did not fly together. They were flying in order to make progress on the Clinton impeachment for treason in selling weapons to the Chinese. Okay. I believe the Kennedys, John and Robert, although they had a lot of good things that they were doing, creating the silver certificate, opposing Langley, other things like, prosecuting the mafia, various things. But when it comes to Marilyn Monroe, I think that was a murder scene. Okay? I think that was a murder scene. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. We'll find out soon with the, how do you want to call it? The reemergence of, say, Princess Diana, Elvis Presley, John Lennon, maybe Marilyn Monroe, age 93, maybe Robin Williams, John Kennedy Jr. Okay, the revelations, the new reemergences. Okay, another one. The Sound of Freedom is the first volley. It doesn't have to be the last volley. Mel Gibson has the second assault, and it's the three-parter. Mel Gibson, I believe, is one level higher in courage. I have a lot of respect for Jim Caviezel, or however you pronounce his name, a lot of respect. But for Mel Gibson, he's at the top of the heap. Mel Gibson is the one who came out and spoke against Hollywood and their usage of adrenochrome 2 years ago as a quart of blood being used as currency for payments. Okay. Those are my main point. Now, you asked your general question, Jean-Claude, how will this strategy work for the White Hats in producing a success? I think that we're not, I want to be tactful here, even regarding myself. We need to understand that as much as we're aware of, there are many things we're not. Like, we're not aware of some of the extraordinary technology for monitoring and for gene therapy. We're not aware. I get hints from consult calls. I had one done with a military fellow who's retired, and he had 2-level tour of Area 51. And I'm telling you, that curled my ears. Hybrids of grays and humans. Yeah, that curled my ears. Okay, my point is that we, in particular me, because I know myself well, I'm not informed enough to know what the best strategy, optimal strategy will be. Now, I'm a mathematician, statistician, probability theorist, and I know that simulations are based on rules, they're based on testing, and they're based on good input means good output. And I know, I just don't know what the best optimal strategy is. So I have a good deal of trust of the triumvirate. Now, did I hear that correctly? You regard, Kerry, the triumvirate as Trump, JFK, and 107? That is a triumvirate that you referred to?
No, JFK and 107 are the same person. So I'm talking about two pillars. JFK Jr. and Trump. They were childhood friends. There are photos of them.
Up. Who's the triumvirate? JFK, Trump,
JFK
and who?
Jr. and Trump.
You
107 is, and I gave you some pictures, photos that will demonstrate, if you want to show that on my website. If you scroll down, JFK Jr., this is a picture of 107 in disguise, and this is JFK Jr. And he appeared in front of the audience in Vegas in person, signed books in person. He did the same thing down at the Texas Renegade. I call it Renegade. It's whatever the conference down there. So he's appearing in public from time to time. He wears what is in essence a Santa Claus beard, covering even more of his face. Back then, he was wearing a shorter beard. He's got a huge stomach that's fat, that looks fake. He's got, it's very obvious. It's anyone who knows disguises, and I have studied this and talked to CIA agents and people who've done these body suits, and I can tell you that that's real, that the whole Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible, that Eddie Murphy, when he played the fat person, I know that Sean David Morton has actually worn one of these suits, and he went and visited his family. They didn't recognize him. So this is what he has been doing for the last, whenever he appears in public, and especially as he became more and more
voice matches, voice print matches?
Yeah, they've done all that. So, I don't want to make this about that, but if you scroll down and just show the photographs, there's a photograph towards the end that shows a tattoo that young John Jr. got. And the fact is, I have it on good authority that he is actually above the rank of a military general. Okay. He is became part of a military operation when he was quite young. You can understand this young boy, even against Jackie's wishes, in essence, had been guarded by Secret Service, had been guarded by all kinds of people from the black and dark projects. He was educated by them. He grew up at their feet. They taught him, they prepared him to be, in essence, their leader of the White Hats, because he was the son of John F. Kennedy. And you have to understand the heritage of the group in order to understand what they do now and why they do it the way they do it. So
okay.
Wow.
Well, Jean-Claude, I don't have a great deal more to add.
No, that's great. Thank you. I just want to go through the name.
No,
Go ahead.
except to say in conclusion that I believe the White Hats have a lot of obstacles that they're trying to clear that we're not really too well aware of.
Right.
And one of them is the defeat of the cyborg military soldiers who are working side by side with the Chinese in Canada under you, under where you are, under your region.
Yeah.
That's just one. Another one that had to be removed was nuclear devices, and I think that has been successful. And if they're buried more than like a mile or so below ground, they're hard to detect. And I've been hearing over and over again, like 3 or 4 or 5 times, the good ET has lent us temporarily nuclear detection devices to note and identify where the location is of underground nuclear devices, and that has been successful. What we might be waiting for is 2 things right now, and that's for the U.S. dollar structures, the bank, the government, and the bonds to collapse. And also the second thing is for opinion to turn completely against the Biden show. We're now seeing Biden show elements where Joe, or whoever's playing Joe, is admitting that he's not the president, who's admitting that he's been telling a lot of bullshit lies to the people. And I heard from it's about 2 or 3 different sources, and they said we're very close to single-digit Biden approval levels. And that clown there, okay, the new King Charles is not the same guy. I've got a left side, right side, and it's about, I'd say an 80% match. Left side, right side, old Charles, new Charles. And my theory, and not proven by any means, is that the new King Charles needed to come on board in order to solidify the 15 trillion royal assets. I heard something from a well-informed client who did a consult call with me just a couple of days ago. He said, Jim, I've been hearing that hooded fellow on the stage during the coronation was Trump. And, I think it could be. I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really care. Really, I don't care. What I care about is success and moving forward for clearing out the Biden show and canceling it and putting it off the air. Okay, I heard that there was like a coup attempt for the fake White House at Fort McPherson outside Atlanta. We have a lot of events that are going on that are not getting any publicity. And one of my standard lines to people is, why would you expect the news to tell us about trafficking and money laundering in Ukraine when the news network officials and owners are part of the process?
Right.
Okay, this is basic stuff. But, you know, a lot of people don't understand. They think, well, the news is honest, isn't it? Isn't it? No, it's not. It hasn't been for a long time, you idiot. I've been telling people you're an idiot now more than I've ever have before. Okay, when I'm riding along, sometimes I'm on my bike and sometimes I'm walking. And I'm telling you, I had an incident a week ago. I stopped my bike and I asked a woman, is that mask you're wearing for slavery or ignorance? I've asked that question about 5 times in the last month.
What's your
And when
answer?
they go, oh, yeah. Okay, that's ignorance. And one woman said, well, actually, I've been sick, sir, and I'm wearing it just for protection. I go, oh, okay. And I ride on. I hop back on and I ride off. I don't want to be too much of an asshole. I'm already an asshole. I am a career asshole. I was an asshole in high school. I'm not proud of it, but, you know, I showed up some of my teachers, and I had a general attitude that if I knew 3 of them were pedophiles trying to get their hands in my pants, then most of them probably were, so I'm going to give them all a bad time. We had a guy named Brother Joseph. Can you know where I'm going with this? Brother Joseph. And we called him BJ. Okay, you know, that's Central Catholic High School. If you don't like it, Central Catholic director, you can eat shit. Okay.
Okay, Jim.
right.
Let's do this
Now,
final thing.
We're
Thank you
talking
for that.
about
Jim.
pedophilia, John Claude, and I'm on subject. Okay, I'm on
Yeah,
topic.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Jim. I appreciate it. And you're getting a lot of love in the chat. Okay, so the last segment is when push comes to shove here. We're all gunning for the same thing here, the removal of the Biden show, the removal of this child trafficking network around the world and all that. Now, what seems to be happening, and we've heard this for a long time, that eventually here they would pull this Project Bluebeam kind of alien invasion type of scenario to turn the channel. And it very much looks like now is a good time for them to turn the channel. Things are not going too well for them. I wanted to bring up, in the last 2 weeks, we had 2 incidents on planes where people are freaking out about somebody sitting next to them and wanting to leave the plane. Now, in this particular video, they're accusing this woman of maybe being part of a psyop, that maybe she was wearing one of those masks we're just talking about now. Let me play this clip here for you guys here. And there's this other gentleman also who tried to open the door in a flight that was actually in air to try to remove himself from whatever he thought was weird on the plane. I wanted to ask you both about this. Is this predictive programming? Is this a psyop to bring us into perhaps them flipping the card here on this UFO alien invasion type of scenario? I'll ask Jim to go first and then Kerry. Jim, what are your thoughts?
I think it's very possible that we're getting a lot of staged incidents in order to increase the awareness of people, but also, Jean-Claude, in order for people, good people, to start asking questions and to begin to wonder. Okay, this is a very difficult process. Let me bring this to my own sister. I tell you, she's a great example. 10 years ago, I said, you're an ostrich with your head in the sand. And she said, not really. When I come home from a difficult day, I want to relax. But you've got to do this gradually. And I don't think that she could handle alien invasion. I don't think she could handle ET. I don't think she could handle the Greys working on in Area 51, a hybrid species. So you have to do this gradually. And I think that she, my sister, will be very capable of making the move from child trafficking to child torture killing. So that could be the bridge that's next, that the AI determined was a necessary bridge to cross successfully. Okay, also, I think another bridge is showing that some actors like Tom Hanks have been replaced by his brother. You know, they said in the Elvis movie, well, Tom Hanks had to gain weight in order to play the manager's role. Well, really, I think his brother gained weight. And by the way, he has a different face, a different chin, and a different nose, and a different set of eyes. But it's very similar. If you did your Langley software, you'd probably get 85%. I did it with a friend on the Pompeo joke of a replacement a year and a half ago, and he said it's only 58%. If you did it for the King Charles, my guess is it would be about 80%. If you did it for Newsom, the governor of California, who got replaced, I think it might be 80% or a little bit higher. An outstanding job that they did for Newsom in replacement. It's not the same head. They cannot change the width of the cranium. They cannot change that. Okay, Jean-Claude, I think we're in for a series of psyops by the White Hats. A series. There might be 10 or 20 of them. We're likely to see something in, I don't know, like an attempted theater incident or shoot 'em up. I don't know. Right now, there's an incident in progress regarding malaria with Gates in Florida. That has not played out fully. I got my eyes on a lot of different things. I'm overwhelmed with information. I'm very grateful for I got two colleague groups. One is conventional finance and the other one is digital finance. Just got to say, Ripple Tech won a big lawsuit decision today with the Securities and Exchange Commission. I just want to throw that out. XRP. Now, I think we're going to see a lot of mileage, a lot of traction.
I just have to say, Jim, I don't remember if we said at the beginning of the show, but you've been calling for this for 6 months and people were laughing at you. And here we are today. The announcement's been made. And you had said that this had already been decided months ago, but just not announced. And here we have the actual decision in line with what your prediction was 6 months ago.
And it's going to be over $1, over $1 real soon. And it's going to produce a lot of publicity. But yeah. Jean-Claude, in a quick, I need to quit this point. We're going to be happy with a lot of the exposure. The pilots right now are up in arms, airline pilots. They may file a lawsuit over the damage. I have 2 clients who are pilots and keep me informed. It's basically, I think, BlackRock and Vanguard issuing rules. And I believe firmly that the pilot issue is to slow down significantly the economy. If the pilots say we can't fly by their union or by rules or by some, dictum from the companies, then we're going to have a lot less travel, a lot less, cargo. It'll all be rail, and then they'll sabotage the rail. Okay. My sister was aware of the train wrecks and the cargo interruption, my sister. So she's a really good litmus test. She's busy, unbelievably busy. And she's in court, probably 6 or 8 days a month, which is a lot for a divorce attorney. Anyway, I don't want to get her in trouble, but I just like mentioning her because I respect her a lot. And we've had a lot of differences, but something really interesting happened regarding the exposure, Jean-Claude. It was April, and she said to me, Jim, I've given up. I think our country is lost. I think our leaders are psychotic, clueless, and leading us down a very bad path. I think the economy is wrecked. I've already seen problems, with accounts receivable in my law firm. We can't hire a replacement attorney associate. And I wrote her back and said, let me get back to you in the morning because I've got 5 points to make and I think you'll find it interesting because I am positive one of my major points was the continuity of government and Cheyenne Mountain with Trump and his clan of brilliant people that I believe include Robert David Steele. Okay, now I don't know, Kerry, if you can confirm that, because I think he's in a northern, very northern site and deep underground. That's what I've been told.
If he's alive, that's very logical. We just don't know, but because they've done a good job of persuading the public that he did die of COVID in the hospital because his wife insisted he have a ventilator. But considering the people he knows and the contacts he had, one of whom is again, 107, hello, yeah, it's very likely.
I just wanted to add to that too. We're going to have one on July 27 here, and it's going to be on the topic of continuity of government. So thank you for reminding me of that, Jim. On the topic of Tom Hanks and all of these other replacements here, what the fuck's happening on with Jamie Foxx here? Has he just been replaced? Also, Kerry, let's talk about this Project Bluebeam alien invasion. Are we being primed for that? Is that what we're seeing with these airplane situations as of late, Kerry?
I think it's highly possible. I think they are working on it. I don't know if they kind of know how they can roll it out. And we were told way back, I mean, this is, I know sounds crazy, but back in the early days of Camelot, we had whistleblowers, and we were told that when they rolled out all of this, it would all happen at once. So that they had the most massive amount of chaos, and to throw the alien card in that no one wants to hear about, would certainly do that. So I think it's very possible. I have talked many times about Randy Kramer, the Marine. He's got his Marine, colonel or whatever you call those people, attending the conference with him, watching over him. He has said on stage, now it's over 3 years ago, so they're kind of late, but he said even the military, at least the military he was talking about, was sick of having what is in essence a split in the military. They wanted people to get on board. They wanted people to realize that we're fighting something more than just humans here on the planet. And by the way, as the White Hats go into the underground bases, I know nobody wants to hear this, and rescue the children, they are encountering nests of reptilians who are in charge of those children. Okay. And they are having to kill them. It's a battle. So they are battling them in underground bases. And this will eventually come out.
The reptilians are vampires.
It's going to be reptilians. Vampires do exist, and there are plenty of human vampires, by the way. But okay. So what we're talking about is a war. And we were told also in Camelot that when the war with China came around, to understand that that was just a rehearsal, that was the rehearsal for the war with off-planet races. Now, you may or may not want to go there, but I have to tell you that I've spent 18 years interviewing whistleblowers about these kinds of things, and there's a substantial amount of documentation. And this latest rollout of whistleblowers, and I'm told there's another one coming, that Stephen Greer, who is basically bought and sold and handled, and very devious and telling lies along with it, because when they roll something out, they lie with both sides of their mouth, right?
You mean like him saying there's no such thing as bad ETs, Kerry?
Exactly.
Right.
So, but what we have is going to be, yes, a distraction, because we're going to have the financial change. We're going to have, all of these changes. And this is a battle between largely two sides. Okay. And one side wants a certain degree of freedom for humanity. And I'm saying that a certain degree, because I don't know how far they go. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But, and then the other side wants a totalitarian, completely cyborg, passive soldier population. They want to eliminate a large portion of us. They have a whole agenda that most about, probably publicly, The other side, we know less about their plans for humanity, but we know that they are actually patriots because they are loyal to the American Constitution, to what it stands for. That's what they're fighting for, and those are the people under Trump.
Jean-Claude,
Okay.
could you bring that picture back, the previous picture of the helicopter?
About Xi warning the army to prepare for war. Yeah.
I want to make a very important point here. In 2005, I went to Cancun with my father. It was my final trip with my father. He became quite old and slow and, not sick, but just in his 90s, slowed down. It was his last trip. When we went to Cancun, I asked one of the hotel managers, how come all of your waiters are the same height? They were Mayan. They were all 5'5", 5'6". If you had 6 or 8 of them standing together, they're all the same height. They were Mayan. Look at that picture. They're all the same height, Jean-Claude. And I'll give you dollars to donuts. They're all cyborgs.
Wow. Okay.
If
That's going to
you've
be
got,
for...
if you've got 25, 30 people all lined up,
Yeah.
what do you think the difference would be between the tallest and the shortest? Well, I got news for you. That is part of the simplest aspect of my doctoral thesis. So I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The difference in 30 people for highest and lowest height of humans would be at least 6 or 7 inches.
Right.
Take a look at that picture again. All right.
Yeah.
They
Okay,
almost.
I have a story to tell you, a very short one.
Go ahead.
It's going to augment what you just said.
Okay.
I was recently in Egypt. We were in a restaurant. There were a bunch of Chinese kids and people. They were all young. They were all in and around, 18, let's say. And these kids were all tall. Okay. And I have to tell you that I know for a fact that they have been also genetically engineering their children to become taller. They don't want to be short. They want to be tall. And they're tall, they're slender, they're beautiful, and they are all, I believe, genetically engineered.
Wow.
Take a look at Chu and Lai and Deng. Each one was about 5'5" or 5'2". I think Deng might have been under 5 feet tall. So I'm supporting your point. I've heard elsewhere that they're doing genetic engineering, and we're going to see it in the world of sports. You might first see it in the volleyball. I've got an old colleague. His name was Bob, and he was 6'5", and he married a woman named Lisa, and she was 6'1". I know that because she was exactly that much taller than me, and I'm 6'0". And I said to Bob, when you have kids, they're going to be playing basketball. He had 3 daughters, and 2 of them got volleyball scholarships. So, that's not engineering. That's just tall man marrying tall woman. And anyway, I've got an example of me with the tall gal, and we've got a kid, and I told her just a few days ago, he's going to be 6'3" at least. And he's a good kid. Our little kids are good. We call them the monkeys. Anyway, genetic engineering is something that has been on the back burner now. I remember in the 90s, I went on a ski trip, and I used to go to a place in Western Maine called Sunday River. And I hooked up with a guy, and he was a Cambridge, Massachusetts biochemical engineering working in gene therapy and gene splicing. And we conversed about how bacteria were now being genetically engineered to produce insulin. And we talked about several other things. And he said, Jim, and this was 1997. He said, you would not believe what we're capable of doing with gene therapy. So I think it won't be long before we're going to have like a genetic removal of, say, diabetes, a genetic removal of, who knows, certain cancer. But to get rid of cancer, we need to shut down the Rockefeller medical complex, because the vaccines have produced cancer. And that was one of the biggest smokescreens we've ever gone through in our history. The 1970 and late 1960 era, where we talked about cigarettes and air pollution as causing cancer, including breast cancer. No, it was the vaccinations.
Right.
It was a Rockefeller project. And now just look around you. It's a $200 billion a year industry. And here's just a little tidbit for you. The cancer chemotherapy drugs, they charge $70,000 for 1 year. And it costs them $70 to produce. 1,000-fold markup. And they act like they're really special drugs. No, they're not. They're just immune system enhancements. All the things that they remove by means of their, what do you call it? Nagalese in the vaccine. Okay. Anyway, we're taken for a ride, and the awareness of the Rockefeller is going to cause a lot of problems. And, you know, as much as a lot of people respect Cliff High, and I do to some respect, he called in November for a chapter in American society of vengeance and violence against the doctors and nurses who are responsible for killing that father's child or friend. And that's not happened yet. And I think it's going to happen. I'm not saying I want it. I'm just saying it's inevitable.
He's often early on the predictions, Jim. Jim, before we go, how can people support you here on golden-jackass.com? And then I'll ask Kerry the same way on how we can support her.
It's golden-jackass.com. Right in the center is a subscribe button. That's the best way to support my work. In the last year and a half, I've had a really good my peak, not quite. The consult button is a popular method for getting in touch with me and getting direct one-on-one help. I did a consult call this morning with a woman in France, a British woman in France. I did a consult call 2 days ago, a brilliant fellow in Florida. The sponsor button is unique, and I love it when people hit it because it's for a large donation that ensures my financial survival and continuation. Without the support of clients in the last 3 years, Jean-Claude, I wouldn't be here. My losses from freakish, bizarre, insane, crazy, improbable events continues.
Yeah. I hear you. And Jim, I thank you for all your work. And I know a lot of our audience members have supported you here in the past. I'll ask our audience again to support Jim in all of his work. You can do so here at golden-jackass.com. Kerry, before I go, also, how can we support you here on projectcamelotportal.com?
Okay, so of course you can donate, and that's a donate button right in red at the top of the thing, or you can join and pay a monthly. It starts at, if you subscribe for a year, it's $3 a month, less than the price of a latte, one latte. So it's dirt cheap, I have to say, but it does keep us alive, especially me. And I'm having to hire a different webmaster right now. We're having to revamp the site. I noticed that. I don't know if you refreshed your thing, but you're missing the post that I just put in, but it doesn't seem to be showing up. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm doing a conference in August, but it's a very small, unique group that I do every year. It's at a High Elms Manor in the UK. It's like a garden party, great networking event, but it's also, we have speakers for 2 days. Okay. And it is, it's held at what is called the High Elms Manor, and the UFO Academy and myself basically produce it. So just saying that it only allows 125 people. So if you want a ticket, you better get one right away. and it is held in England.
Okay.
So other than that, projectcamelotportal.com is my main website, not projectcamelot.com. Okay. The Illuminati own that. We can't get that. We've never been able to get it. So projectcamelotportal.com is my website. Also projectcamelot.tv or projectcamelot.org go to the same place. And what else can I tell you? I'm on Rumble. I mean, all my, might go across. You can see I've got 2 Facebook. I've got a huge Telegram channel, Odyssey, Rumble, YouTube, leftover YouTubes. Every once in a while, I try to sneak in and upload another video. It usually doesn't work. I'm banned across the board from YouTube. It's incredible how much
It's
I'm
a
banned.
badge of honor, Kerry. A badge of
Yes,
honor.
I know. And I've got a fair amount of videos hanging out on BitChute as well. So
Okay.
I'm really everywhere. I'm on social media. I'm on Truth Social. I'm on Twitter. I'm under KL Cassidy. I was banned on a lot of these things. I was banned on LinkedIn. I'm back on there. I'm back on Twitter. I was banned, obviously on YouTube. I never got back on there really. But, this, just so you know, my Rumble is where I put the first time, like even this, I'm broadcasting via Facebook. I will edit out any delays and put it over on Rumble. That's the first place I put stuff. And then after that, it's my website and it's Odyssey. So the whole Camelot library is on Odyssey and my website. And that is like over 1,500 interviews with over the last 18 years.
A lot of work, absolutely. And Kerry, before we go, also for the audience members who are kind of new to the conversation about the ETs, speak about why perhaps reading the book Rebel Gene will give them a bigger overview here of the ET involvement and how that leads to where we are today and why this Rebel Gene is so important in each and every one of us, Kerry.
Well, okay, that's a fairly big subject, but that is my book. It has done very well. People do like it. It is, some of the inside story about who I am, how I might have been genetically manipulated in Palo Alto at Moffett Field, which is a military hospital, by some strange situations. I have a very strange birthmark on my arm, since I was born. So there are reasons to follow that out. But as far as, I explain the overall subject matter. The bottom line is we have a secret space program that decided that they needed to battle incoming ET races once Eisenhower made deals with, in essence, the Greys and a few others. And those deals revealed that those individuals, those ETs, wanted to abduct humans and inject their DNA into the humans and make their own hybrid race so they could occupy Earth. So these things were threats to humanity and to our dominion on Earth. So we have good guys out there that are helping us, like William Tompkins talked about, the Pleiadians, and we have the ones that came over and influenced the Nazis, gave them the Foo Fighters and the technology, told them you can't use it to win this war back in World War II, but apparently now is when they're able to actually roll out the whole hog. So there's reason to understand that we have a military. And by the way, our secret space program has been protecting us, along with Solar Warden and other organizations that are part of it, from negative ETs that would have already taken over our Earth from us. Okay, so they're a double-edged sword. Don't agree with everything they do, but they are also heroes in protecting Earth, because we have a very contentious multiverse out there, hundreds of Earth-like planets, actually billions, and planets with other kinds of beings, many of whom do not consider humans to be worthwhile. Let's just say that.
We're just cattle to them, yes.
And that's not even talking about the AI.
Right.
So, and I do talk about the AI in my book, and I have been investigating the AI and the off-planet AIs incoming, trying to take over the human-derived AIs that are also reverse engineered anyway. So it's a big story, but you can't hide from it. You can't run and you can't hide.
I love it, Kerry. And guys, before you buy the book, maybe if you're interested in more, try before you buy. Please do go and check out our interview here with Kerry Cassidy from 2 years ago. It's called The Rebel Gene with Kerry Cassidy. You can find that now on the beyondmystic.net/war page right now with all the information about this video here today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. Of course, this was the War Correspondent Report for July 13. And please join us again on July 27 for the second edition here of the special report on continuity of government with Mr. Juan Osavan. We're also going to get into defense readiness and what that means and where we're at in this particular stage of the war. I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic. Thank you so much for supporting us, and please do go check out Jim at golden-jackass.com as well as Kerry at projectcamelotportal.com. Have a great day, folks, and we'll see you soon. Au
Thank
revoir.
you.
Thank you.
A